The date is July 27th, 1983. I'm Jeff LePage, and I'll be interviewing Alvin Bryan of Foxley River.
Unfortunately, the house burned back in 1960, the year of the big fire here. We lost the house, and we had pictures and we had everything of things like that. We lost everything.
Yeah.
But we did have that, like at the time the house caught fire. Norman, I was in Summerside, we had an apartment living down there, and I had the place closed, and but we had like our deeds with us, you know, things like that. And that's how we got that. We wouldn't have that.
Yeah.
But all the pictures and everything we had of 100 years ago, this, you know, the old farm and all the buildings. It's a shame I wouldn't take anybody, but
Right.
lost them all. We have got a set of flailer, what do you call flailers? Flails. Is it Norma? I guess you didn't hear me. You know, they used to flail the grain with.
Right.
Beat the heads. Yeah, there's a set. We did pick those up, and they're here somewhere. And then my father went to Ireland back in 1933, and he brought home a blackthorn stick like he wanted, like the Irishman, with the old shillelagh, by the way.
Right.
So we have that here in the house.
I see.
Yeah, we have that.
That's going to be quite authentic, of course.
Oh yes, that's quite a stick. I must get Norman, I guess, from the bathroom. We did have a lot. The old house was my goodness was well used to make their own yarn and everything, you know, the spinning wheels. That was all upstairs and all the attic, but I lost it all. Saved and all.
Yeah. Yes, it would be. Yeah, especially if you had a lot of stuff like that, you were hanging onto it. You know.
This was it. And everything was in pretty good shape too, like the old spinning wheel, and the two like a bigger and a smaller one, I suppose, for different kinds of. And those old mat frames. They used to hook a lot of mats those days.
Right.
And, but they all went to pot.
Were there any famous people in your family that you know?
Well, he was the smartest one this year, John Thomas Bryan. I was just telling you about here. He was he was quite famous for what he had done, you know, and he was the only one that really, well, all the family in the younger days went to the States to work in Boston. A lot of them worked in ice teams, and then was a druggist, and one boy became a druggist. But then was that William Bryan. He built a lot of houses up in the States, and so he was a real estate business. But this Reverend John Thomas, or Doctor, I guess John Thomas, he was the smartest. And I haven't got the full history on him. If you're ever in Albert, in Montrose, look up Mrs. Hubert Campbell. And she's got the whole history of after, like, he left here and what he accomplished and what his family accomplished. She was over to Ireland, 2 or 3 years ago, he went to Ireland, I guess. And she went to the old house she went to where they were married, Arthur and Amelia Bryan. She went to the church where they were married, and the whole thing. Went to the farm where she came from, and went to where he came from. And there's a little more to the story. The reason why he left Ireland, the Bryans were quite, of course I wouldn't want this to come out in the paper, but the Bryans were quite wealthy back in Ireland, see. And he married this Amelia Evans, and she was a commoner. You know what they call a commoner?
Right.
So then his family disowned him because he married in his class.
Oh, I see.
So the poor fellow packed up and he came to New York and pretty high. So, and my father used to often wonder, you know, why his mother would never say, well, if I could just get back to Ireland, how nice it would be. But his father always brought it up, and his mother never did say. But then when after they were both dead then, like his parents, they went to Ireland back in 1933, he and his brother, Bill, William, and they soon found out when they got there why. His mother never wanted to go back. You know, it's sort of a shame to think that this was goes on in Ireland, I guess. But
I see.
But his brother now, he came out here, this John fella, and he married an England girl, and every year there'd be so much money sent to John Bryan from the old Bryan estate, but poor Arthur never did anything. So that's an argument for you, I guess.
Right. I see.
So it was, back in Ireland they had gardeners and they had servants, they had everything. They were quite wealthy, the Bryans.
Quite well to do.
Oh, boy, and they're still quite wealthy, apparently. I know that Mrs. Campbell said they're beautiful homes with flower gardens. But the evidence is they live out in the country and they're just lower or poorer class people. You know, there's nothing wrong with it. They're just poor compared to the other lads. Now here we don't look on people like that, thank God for that, but in Ireland I guess they still do.
Yeah, still the class structure
Yeah,
there.
that's right. So that's how they come here the first. And it's B-R-Y-A, and it's not O'Brien, it's not Bryan. It was always B-R-Y-A, and one name never was changed. It was always the
Always the same.
That's right, always the same.
A lot of people have had their names changed through mistakes or whatever.
Oh yeah, because some people says, was your name Bryan? I said, no, Bryan. B-R-Y-A, and that's it. There's no more. It never was changed. You can write back to the Godwin's Hamley, back to 1700 or something. I think the first go guy was there.
Right. Do you have any stories that you've heard passed down through the family? Or that you've heard?
Goodness, I've heard a lot of them. I don't even think of them. There's a lot in that book there that John Thomas wrote. Oh, my father used to be a great storyteller. He lived and he could tell a lot of stories, funny things that happened, you know, and well, if I could go and I'll probably come to me after a while. Right. Straight off the tip of my tongue.
Well, how would your parents or grandparents, or even further back, how would they have come to meet? Like, would it be just because they lived close or together, or how would they?
Back in Ireland,
yeah, or on PER or whatever.
Well, now, like Henry Bryan, he married a girl from Conway, which is only 3 or 4 miles away.
Right.
He met her at a tea party, they call it, a social, I guess, those days.
Right.
He met her and took her home, and I think they went to church a few times, and I don't know that they got married. This was 6 months later. I guess that's how they met her. That's how they tell the story, anyways.
Right.
There's never any. It's always a tea party or.
Some sort of a social gathering.
Yeah, they call it social. Yeah, and then they had the way that you could, if you made a basket and you took to the party, like, and the baskets were all sold. But if I bought your basket, and you and I eat what was in the basket, like, whether I ever met you before or not, but we sat down and we eat together. And that's how a lot of them got together too. You know? Oh yeah, this is the big thing, you know. Buy your basket. And they may go for $5 or $3, whatever it be, but and that was a big thing to raise money. See, and all these young girls would go with a nice basket of food and put them up for sale. And whoever bought the basket, he had the privilege of sitting down and eating with this girl. That, so that's how a lot of connections were made that way.
That's one I haven't heard before.
Yeah, oh yeah. Oh yes, I've heard my mother and father talking about that all the time. Tea parties, I guess they call them, or something like that. We call them picnics today, but tea parties was the big
thing. Did you ever hear of anything more unusual than that, like an unusual kind of a courtship, or I don't know, an arranged marriage, like on the boat from Ireland, that kind of thing?
No. Like the old people were married, like I said, in Ireland, and they came out here, and then their families were, well, a lot of them married great people from right around the area here. Like Alvin Bryan, one of the boys, he married a girl from down Freeland. She was a Parma girl. And, well, some of them went away to Boston to work, and they met girls from one of the States. That's right, that did. Because the girls from here used to go away to the States to work as well. It's like now they go to Toronto, Montreal, they used to go to Boston nowadays. This is a big place to go.
That's it.
And I remember my father said that the first time he went to Boston, from Portage to Boston, was $9.05. Yeah, and the first job he had was working on the ice teams.
Oh, yeah.
You ever tell all the ice teams.
Yeah,
and the first year he worked like as a striker. That's what he was called. Like he was a helper. Like another guy had the team, and he was the helper. They called him a striker. But then the next year he was back, and he had the experience then. So he had a team of his own to drive, and then he had a striker helping him. It's funny, this striker racket.
Yeah.
But there's no, well, those days are all ice chests, ice boxes.
I heard one story, I think it was supposedly connected with the Bryan family, something about removing a house or something like this.
Oh yes, that's over at John Bryan's. That would be the guy's name on the top of that page.
Okay.
And this thing was supposed to have been in the cellar.
Yeah, I think that.
Well, you know, I heard Dad tell him that, and he swears it's the truth. So I forget how many teams of horses that they hitched that was on at his house and they couldn't budget, and the priest came along and they said he couldn't get started, and the priest said, well, if the devil leave the house, something just as a joke, he'll go. And just then this black thing come up out of the cellar. There was an open outside cellar hatch, like each of the two doors and they'd open up.
Right.
He said this black thing came out and it looked like a dog and was going in over into the river, and he swears to God that the horses just took right off with it whenever they didn't haul the house very far. But
it just went very smoothly.
oh yes, no problem whatsoever. I heard Ken McBride's grandpa tell the same thing, John L. McBride, and he was a very truthful old guy. He wouldn't tell any stories, but he said it was quite true. Yeah, there's a lot of stories about that place over there, because it was supposed to be the dark fellow got off the ship and went to work on the farm, and I don't know what happened. This was an old John Hughes lived over there first, and he'd be an uncle to this John Bryan that came out. And he was terribly bad-tempered, they claim. And the story goes that something happened to the little black fellow, which he never was seen, whether the old fellow cut the head off, or you hear all these stories, of course, but whatever happened, but I know in this Bryan family over there, an awful lot of them died at a very early age with TB. And I remember my father telling the story quite well, that one night one of the girls was quite sick. I suppose she'd be 15 or 16, the girl. And one of her older brothers came over and said, would you come over tonight? So-and-so was quite sick and mother's terrible tired. So she said she wouldn't. My father said he's 13, 14, so he went along with her mother for company. And he said that night about 1 o'clock after he was laying on the couch, one of them old leather hard-back couches, and his mother sitting in the rocking chair. And he swears that he thought that every dish in the little pantry broke. He never heard such a rack in his life. So he got up and he said, Mother, what's that? And his mother said, oh, pay no attention to that. And she said, the noises are here all the time. That's why they moved the house, they claim. That's why they hauled it. They had the idea that the house was on one of these ferry paths, see? Right. It seems as foolish to even talk about, but this is what they believed in, right. And they really believed it. And then they hauled the house, and apparently after that there was no more noises, nothing happened over there. My Lord.
Sounds a little hard to believe these days, but
at that time they believed it, of course, and Irishmen were superstitious, about it, of course. I shouldn't be talking because I guess I'm the same.
Do you have superstitions, or?
I guess it's
I'm terribly superstitious. If I'm going to work in the morning and I forget my keys, I won't come back. I'll say, throw me up the keys, I forgot them from there. Oh, no way like a back. No way. No way. There wouldn't be enough money here to get me back in the house. Oh, I'm terrible. I shouldn't be telling it, but I am very superstitious.
I see.
Yeah.
Are you like black cats crossing your path, that kind of thing, or what?
Oh, no, I stay away from that.
I see.
But, yeah, that's the John Hughes that's supposed to have this thing in the basement.
Was there any customs or anything that you always observed in your family? Like, did you always even say grace before a meal?
No, they say old grandmother Bryan did. The old lady always did, yeah. But the younger generation seemed to break away from that. But now Mrs. Campbell, the woman I was speaking to you about, she always did. She was right to this day. She does, and she was brought up with her grandmother quite some time too, because when she was about 3 years old, her mother died, and then she was brought up here, like up on this farm, and then the old grandmother, the old lady was still living, so this Mrs. Campbell still carried on to saying the grace, and right to this day, if you went in there for a lunch, she'd have to say grace. She carried it right through
or anything like always gather at Christmas kind of thing, or was there always that kind of a custom, always the family dinner at Christmas?
No, well,
or whatever.
We always have our family dinner. No, I think the Bryans, they scattered out an awful lot from all different areas, you know. They went here and there and everywhere, but we're very, very clannish. My goodness, we're very close to them. No, I'm just trying to think, you know. You're going to get a lot of stories in that book. Things that happened when he was a young fella growing up here. You get a lot of funny things there. It's going to be quite helpful and useful to him. Let me see. All this amazing kind of life, and just go back over them, you know. And, the Bryans were great storytellers, you know, terrific. Yeah. My father was a wonderful entertainer, and every one of them. They laughed so hard themselves that you think they were crying. The tears were running right down the cheeks. You think they were crying, you didn't It's so funny that, they're great entertainers.
It's nice to have somebody like that in the family to
Yeah.
liven up things or whatever.
Yeah, Dad was a great storyteller, great entertainer.
So what about, what was the community like back, I suppose, in your grandfather's time? Was it, like, was there somebody in the community that was very, very important? Like, I suppose the priest would be, but anyone else? Or?
Yeah, well, back in those days, see, doubtful if they'd have a priest here full time back in those days. I don't think they would have. See, the parish here used to belong to Bloomfield years ago, and they had little cemeteries. It's down on the shore up in Cascabec. There's still a few graves, tombstones. But the Anglican Church's been here for a long time. Well, the old church will be over 100 years old, that's for sure. Not the one that's there now, but the older one. And the first minister I still on top of was an old Mr. Harper. What's his name? And he's the three parishes. He had Port Hill, the three churches in Port Hill. That was in lot 11. But that John Thomas and Brian go back, well, it's almost 100 years ago. He could tell things that happened like when he was a little boy, going to wakes and things. No, there were really no important people except the clergyman at the time. It would be the...
Nobody's like stuck out
No,
in the community?
not that I ever heard them speak of.
That's a leader kind of thing?
No, I don't think so. I don't... times were very hard. We know that about it. Nobody had any money, that's for sure.
No, that's true.
And they just farmed a little bit, I guess, and cleared land and just got enough to...
Just lived more than
Just
anything.
lived, yeah, more than anything.
I see.
Oh no, it was... Kevin has a book that came out of the old store over here. Maybe you showed it, did he? Kevin
He was
Bryan?
talking about it, yeah.
Yeah. It's unbelievable, the prices of things and everything.
Yeah.
That place used to be right up the road, right by Kevin's. Used to be up. Well, in fact, the parish house was hauled from that place up there, where the priest lives today. That's the house off it. But they had a shipyard. There was a store up there, and they used to take everything and trade like for groceries,
Right. Wouldn't necessarily be a cash because people wouldn't have it.
No, you'd probably take a pork or...
Yeah.
I used to hear my dad saying too that this old Senator Yo, he was another big wheel, he lived down in Port Hill, that he'd give you like a cow in the fall. Well, she'd probably milk for a couple of months, then she'd be with calf, and then she'd have the calf, and he'd come back in the spring and take the cow and the calf both. So you really didn't get too much. You got a couple of months milk for the cow, but he got the cow fed all winter and then end up with the calf in the spring.
Right.
The cow. So
Yeah, he did pretty good.
Yeah, he did pretty good. So he's sort of a landlord. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was another landlord I hear a lot about was Warburton.
Warburton, yeah, well, that's who they bought the place from. He's buried in the Anglican Church down here.
Oh, I see.
Just down the road, just down the road and turn right. See there's two tombstones with like the round tops, like that beautiful big tombstones, and that's the Warburton. Yeah, that's where he's buried, right up here. In fact, he lived just before you make the turn. If you go down the road here before you make the turn, he lived on the right-hand side. But that's the same house. The house is still the same.
And that would be a fairly old place then, wouldn't
That's an old place. Doug Milligan lives there today, for me, Doug Milligan, he owns it. But that's the old Warburton farm. That's where he lived right there. And then they moved to Charlottetown, but they're buried up here, though. They must go on to be buried up here.
Yeah. Is anybody in the family that kind of like a black sheep, or I suppose that Arthur fellow that you were talking about would be in the people from Ireland's eyes?
He was one of them. Well, he was like the second generation.
Yeah. Is anybody that they kind of don't talk about? You know what I mean?
Well, no. I used to be. Oh, they're all full of the devil.
Yeah.
I used to hear. Well, this John Bryan had a son. Hughes was his name. He was sort of a lay reader, and he said to my father one day, he said, our parents made an awful mistake to come to PEIs. They should have stayed like in New York, because we'd been probably doctors, lawyers today. My father said we'd all be hung. That's what we'd be if we were out in the penitentiary because they do anything. No, they were full of the devil. There's no doubt about it. They were bad, you know. They were not bad, but just devilish. That's all.
Full of
They had
mischief.
to do something to.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, if you were plowing, I would say down the road, there used to be single plow with those. They'd go down and take the plow and they were all big, strong guys. They'd lift it way up the tree or something and hang it. And the poor old fellow come the morning up and the swing the trees there and no plow. And he'd never think of looking up the tree. Probably a neighbour come down the road with a horse and wagon and see this thing shining and would be the moldboard of the plow way up the tree. You know, it's awesome. It's terrible what they do.
Not that they'd ever heard anything, just mischief more than anything.
That's exactly it. Full of the devil, right? Born right in them.
Yeah. That's great. There was nothing like an arranged marriage or anything.
No.
Just everything kind of went along more than anything.
Oh yeah, they just go to like a tea party to a social and meet somebody and then buy their basket. And now this Ernest is his name mentioned. He went to the States. He was a druggist and he met this girl, but she was from Summerside.
Mm.
And they were married, and they had, of course, all the families were still in the States. See, like, you know, his children, grandchildren, and then William Bryan, he met this girl in the States, and he married her, and they just had the one daughter, which is this Amy Campbell, and Mrs. Ewart, I mentioned. Right. So, and then two of the girls went to the States, the Bryan girls, and they married up there. There was Hattie and Rose. They married. But see, when they were young, there were no jobs here. You couldn't buy a job, you know. And if you get to Boston, you get a job of some kind.
Yeah. But
from Portage to Boston, I offered my father saying $9.05. And he had the 5 cents, so he just didn't go.
Oh, I see.
So, yeah, Portage to Boston. You can imagine.
Never do it today.
Oh, goodness. No, indeed not.
For like $905.
A lot of money today.
Yeah, quite a bit. Tell me a little more about your superstitions and things like that, or any of the family superstitions.
No, I don't think so. I don't think any of our family are here, but I'm the only one. They have an awful time teasing me about it. Oh, well, it's funny, hey, if you, now if I was going somewhere and forgot the keys and had to come back in after them, I may as well stay home because something's going to happen anyways that's not going to please me. So it does, really. I've said to Norma here, I may as well stay home because I know they'll be going, why? Well, I had to come back in for my keys. Right. And sure enough, when I was going to buy, something would turn up I wouldn't buy it, or something would happen to be vexed over.
Right. Something small that would annoy you.
Sure. It's but I don't know. Brought up, I guess, with older people, Irish people, and every superstitious. My father would never start anything on Friday. Never. No one would start anything on Friday. If he's going to cut hay, if you couldn't cut a few rounds in the field Thursday, he'd wait till Saturday. Never start Friday. No, but you never start a job Friday, you never finish, he used to tell me. You know? It's funny today, because my God. But they were good in their ways too, though. I often think today now, you asked about, they wouldn't go out to the garden Sunday morning and get the vegetables. Everything had to be got Saturday evening. The chicken had to be killed, or the duck, or whatever we had for dinner. The vegetables had to be all picked, the beans and potatoes. Everything had to be picked and cleaned for ready to cook Sunday. No going to the... Now, when I was growing up as a kid, I was never allowed to play ball on Sundays. No. Well, that was another thing that was which I thought was rather cruel. Playing ball.
Right, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So Sunday was just kind of a special
day. Sunday was a day of rest.
Yeah.
You know, they believed in 6 days self-thou labor, and the 7th was the... Oh, yeah. They're very good going church people. They go to church, you know. But no way would they go and dig potatoes or get the beans or whatever we had for dinner. That had to be all got Saturday evening.
Or didn't get.
Oh, no, he didn't have it, that's all.
I see. That's interesting. I suppose they must have...
Well, that was they went to the way that their parents had them.
Yeah, just being ingrained, you know.
Yeah, old Mrs. Bryan, the old lady, was quite religious. She was very active in the church. She'd, in the choir, and she'd, in fact, she counted every letter, or every word in the Bible. She counted the words in the Bible. I have the old Bible here somewhere. I think I could tell you how many words was in it. She wrote in the back page, and how many verses and all this. Oh, yeah, she's very... This was in her olden days she'd done this because she'd lots of time.
Yeah, right.
Oh, no, and she was... In fact, I heard... I forget who told me that they were in service in church one Sunday, and the minister was preaching something, and she contradicted him right in front of everybody. She said, "You're not right." And I guess she was right.
Yeah.
She did
She
have it.
studied
Yeah,
it.
She
She
studied
had
the
that.
whole study, yes.
Let's see.
You imagine anybody do that, you know. But it's funny, everybody thought around here that she was the one that came from the high society, was Mrs. Bryan, but it was just the other way around. The old fellow was very quiet, neat, old fellow, but so it's funny, you know.
I suppose of those superstitions, so they'd be telling a few ghost stories, would they? Do you figure?
Not too many now. I could never say I ever heard too many ghost stories. Oh, you hear an odd one, but not. No, they didn't believe in them. See, it's funny now you think they would, but they didn't. No, Dad, my father didn't believe in ghosts. He couldn't scare him, or I don't think the older old people. Not that I know of, but no, they were. Well, no, you couldn't scare them. The devil appeared, wouldn't they?
Wouldn't bother them.
No. They were, but they were good living, you know. When they believed, and they didn't believe in any evil, I guess.
Right. True to me. So, where was the original house that was built?
It was just down at the. Well, the original one was handy to the shore, and then about another, well, I suppose 40 years later, they built another up closer to the road. It was still a long piece off the road, but they thought they were getting handier. See, years ago, everybody was around here was handy to the river, because that was the main highway to the river, winter and summer. This was it, winter and summer was the highway. And no, I used to hear my dad laughing when he was a young fella. They had caught a bear, or a couple of bears around here.
Oh, they have?
Oh, yeah, the last bear was caught was just up the road a piece there. Mrs. Kelly's, how would it be? Mrs. Kelly's father-in-law, I think, was the last man to catch a bear around here. But my father had a big fur coat. In fact, I only burnt it here a few years ago. Big wooden buttons on old great big fur coat. And he was a big man. He was 6'1", weighed 250. But anyways, the story began to go around again that there was more bears. So he put the coat on, see. And he got up there at the corner. It was all woods those days. He'd gone through the bushes with his hands and he had a big fur coat on. Somebody seen him. Well, the more the word spread, there's a bear. I'd seen the bear up at the corner. So, of course, he joined the crew to try to catch the bear. But they never did catch the bear. Tell that, you know, and laugh. And it really happened, you know. A neighbor over here, Will Smith, who was the same age, and Will said, yes, I like a damn fool go trying to catch the bear. And there was Henry all the time there, you know, that had been after the bear. But some old lady had seen him, see, and she swore, yes, honestly, God, I've seen him. It's a terrible, great, big, black bear. Brownish black. That's the color of the old
About 6'1", 250 pounds.
He crawled his hands and knees, just breaking the limbs and everything that was down, you know, you can think of. So, but they never got that bear.
No, I don't imagine. Oh,
but you know, years ago, the first road was the rakes. You didn't go to 40 away, go down. You went right straight out. It's called the Toy Road. Still called the Toy Road. That was the main road to the main to the highway. And then years later, they made this road to Portage, the Rafty Road, because it's shorter. It was a lot shorter.
Right.
That's the road that goes straight from Richmond Point?
That's the Toy Road here, yeah. Yeah, that's by John Bryan.
Nice. Mrs. Kelly said something about a bear being caught. Or...
Yeah, they caught a bear up back at her old place instead toward Portage way. That was the last bear I guess was caught around there anywhere. It was a fairly big bear too.
Well, was her father-in-law a hunter or something like that?
No,
he's
just a farmer, I guess. But he had seen the bear and he knew about it, so he built this here big trap. Mrs. Kelly had told me one time how to build it. It was what did she call it? Something dead fall or something she called it.
Yeah, I think that was a deadfall.
Yeah, deadfall. Yeah, but I used to hear them tell a story now about a Mrs. Rafferty. She lived just up the road a couple of miles, and there was a shortcut through the woods that she used to go to a neighbor's place. And this day she was going out for some yeast to make some bread, and of course she got lost off the path.
Right.
And she was missing for 2 or 3 days and they couldn't find her. There was an old guy running a sawmill down the western road. And he had this dream that he knew where she was, mind you.
I see.
Now this Mrs. Rafferty's grandson lives up the road in the trailer. He tells you the same story exactly. And he had the dream, so the next day the men all went to work in the sawmill and he told them what the dream he had. So he said, we're not going to do no work this morning. He said, I'm going to go and find that woman. I think I know where she is.
Yeah.
And they looked at him like you're crazy or something. But anyway, she took them in, and I'd be darned if he didn't find the woman. Wasn't that something? He said, I was dreaming that she was laying under a big pine tree.
Yeah.
And sure enough, when he got in the woods and he seen the big pine tree, like he looked all around, he seen the tree, and he went to the tree, and the poor old soul under the tree.
So it's dead.
Dead, oh yes. So it's a lot of stories around when you think them all, you know, you stop and think about them.
That's true. There seems to be quite a few around that.
Oh yes, every community is the same. But
Yeah.
in Irish communities, a lot of things too.
Yeah.
Irishmen are quite humorous, you know, they like to tell jokes. And pretty near all Irish, no, their people were the culture.